as countries navigate political and economic differences over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The leaders of the world's two largest economies held their first direct discussion on Ukraine conflict since the invasion began last month. According to the White House, the video call lasted just under 2 hours. The Chinese state broadcaster CCTV has quoted Xi Jinping saying that conflicts and confrontations are not in anyone's interest. State-to-state relations cannot go to the stage of military hostilities. The Chinese leader was also quoted addressing the migrant crisis, stating that China and the United States should shoulder international responsibilities. It was not immediately clear if Xi made any direct criticism of Russian President's onslaught against Ukraine or expressed willingness to assist the US-led pressure campaign on the Kremlin. So far, Beijing has refused to condemn its fellow authoritarian ally over the invasion of Ukraine, and Washington fears China could deliver financial and military support for Russia, which will eventually transform an already explosive transatlantic standoff into a global dispute. Just about an hour after the scheduled phone call began, the Chinese Foreign Ministry addressed the migrant crisis in Europe and asked the US to come up with a plan to ease the situation.
我们欢迎各方提出的任何有助于缓解和解决乌克兰人道危机的倡议和举措。你刚才提到，美方正在讨论如何支持乌克兰难民，我们希望美方能够尽快形成方案，将相关的讨论落实到行动中去。
And for more updates on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York. Hello to you, Susan. Thank you for being with us on the broadcast. Now, the video call between Xi Jinping and Biden lasted a little less than 2 hours. What are some of the important takeaways from this conversation?
You know, it's interesting. What we know from the U.S. side is exactly duration of that call and what was supposed to be discussed prior to the call. And the Chinese always do this. They really try to get ahead of the U.S. side in putting out a statement. And so what we know from the Chinese side is that, as expected, they said that they hope that they can work with the United States in solving this crisis between Ukraine and Russia. There's a direct quote that Xinhua made from the Chinese side. As permanent members of the UN Security Council and the world's two largest economies, we must not only lead the development of China-US relations on the right track, but also should do our international responsibilities and make efforts for world peace and tranquility. Now, the United States says that actions speak louder than words. They don't believe and don't have the confidence that China would abide by those words, considering the fact that there have been reports, first of all, that Russia has asked China for help militarily on the one hand. While China has denied that, there is no evidence, but there has been talk that perhaps China might evade sanctions and help Russia because of its own economic interests if it sees that the United States isn't willing to put anything on the table. From the U.S. side, we do know that the call was really meant to pressure China in not taking those steps. But just to show you how fraught relationships are between the two countries, before the call, a Chinese aircraft carrier sailed through the sensitive Taiwan Strait, and the USS Ralph Johnson guided missile destroyer shadowed the carrier at least partly en route. And that was just minutes before that call between Xi and President Biden.
Right, Susan. China has said that war is in no one's interest, but they have not gone as far as condemning Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And Washington fears that China could deliver, as you mentioned, the financial and military support for Russia. Do you think this is still a possibility?
Many generals and analysts and many State Department officials here think that China does not want to see Russia fail at the end of the day in Ukraine. Now, whether or not it will go ahead and straight out provide that assistance to Russia is yet to be seen. There are others who are now saying that perhaps those journalists that are being embedded with the Russian military, the Chinese journalists, they are in fact intelligence members of China. However, that can't be verified, but those are, some of the things on the table here among the intelligence community and those in the State Department. So there is growing concern that perhaps if anything happens, it's going to be covertly and not overtly. And I think that's why it was important for the United States to come out and sort of make this phone call and publicize the optics of it prior to the phone call. And we'll have to see how the U.S. side comes out with a statement on how these talks went.
Absolutely, Susan. Thank you for bringing us all the latest updates there, and we wait for that statement.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.